Well, good afternoon, and welcome to PremierCollectibles.com's live signing. I'm Bill McRaven, and I'm going to be signing a number of my books today. My new book is Sea Stories, My Life in Special Operations. My wife is going to be asking some questions later on, but first let me tell you a little bit about the book Sea Stories. This is a book that covers my life, a few stories about when I was a young boy, but most of the stories are from my 37 years as a Navy SEAL and within Special Operations. And there are stories on the Bin Laden raid, there are the stories of the rescue of Captain Phillips, the capture of Saddam Hussein, and then there are a number of stories that a lot of people have never heard of before, or certainly haven't heard it in public before. But I will tell you, what I hope people take away from this book is that it's not so much about the stories themselves, but about the great men and women that I had the opportunity to work with and to work for. I will tell you right up front, this book has nothing political in it. If you're looking for a political expose, this is not the book. This really is about, again, service and sacrifice of the wonderful men and women I had an opportunity to work with. So I'm thrilled that y'all are here today. Let me talk first about why I wrote the book. I have three kids, three wonderful children. And over the course of my life, to me, or to them, I was really just dad. And they would hear me tell these stories to some of my friends, but never really directly to them. So at some point in time, they said, "Dad, you've never really told us much about your life and the SEAL teams, and we'd like to kind of know a little bit about that." So actually, several years ago, I started penning these stories and then had the opportunity to turn the stories really into this kind of small memoir about my time in the SEAL teams and in Special Operations. So we have a number of questions from y'all today. I'm going to start signing the books, and my wife's going to fire away with a few of the questions. So let's take question number one.
The first one is from Kim in Naperville, Illinois. Whataburger or In-N-Out?
So the question from Kim is Whataburger or In-N-Out? Well, Kim, actually, it's Five Guys. Although if I have to choose between Whataburger and In-N-Out, I like hamburgers. I like all hamburgers, but I'd have to go with In-N-Out.
Next, Angeline from Laguna Niguel in California wants to know, did you serve in Vietnam?
No, Angelina, I was too young. I came into the SEAL teams in 1977. So the Vietnam War had gotten over. Having said that, all of the guys that were my instructors and were with me in my early time in the SEAL teams, they were all Vietnam veterans. And I will tell you, these were incredible men and incredible women that served in Vietnam, and we owe them an incredible debt of gratitude.
Okay, next, from Leslie in Raleigh. What do you value most in life?
So Leslie, I value my family more than anything else. It has been great to serve with the men and women in uniform. That is, of course, of great value to me. But at the end of the day, it really is about my family. It is about my country and my family. That's what I value the most.
Next, from Bruce in Palm Coast, Florida. What is the best advice you can give to my daughter? She just graduated from OCS. January 18th, 2019. She is prior enlisted HT2 and went in enlisted after she graduated from college.
Well, first, I'd pass on my congratulations to her. She is starting a new adventure and she will love it. The first thing I'd tell her, and I would tell any young officer coming in, is sit down and talk to your chief petty officers, talk to your non-commissioned officers. You as a young officer need to learn from the experience that the enlisted men and women have to impart to you. And at the end of the day, it really is always about the mission and taking care of the troops. Those are probably the two most important things that she needs to know as an officer.
Ready?
Ready.
Elizabeth from Schenectady, New York wants to know your feeling about Seabees.
Oh, I'm a huge fan of the Navy Seabees. You may know that the Seabees really were part of the original SEAL teams. So back during World War II, as we were looking at building these combat demolition units, they went off to the Navy Seabees because the Seabees had great skills in demolition, they had skills in construction. So the Seabees were really part of the original SEAL teams or underwater demolition teams, or the combat demolition units that were part of the landing at Normandy. And really, in the course of my 37-year career, I spent a lot of time with the Seabees. They are a magnificent organization. You know, Seabees can do is their motto, and let me tell you, they are just terrific men and women.
And now from Jorge in Soquel, California, what is your opinion of the Marines?
I am an equal fan of the Marines. So as a Navy SEAL, you spend a lot of time on ships, and on amphibious ships in particular. So I was part of Desert Shield and Desert Storm. I spent almost 10 months afloat with a great fleet Marine force. There are very few people who have a greater reputation for combat, and frankly, I loved my time with the Marines. A remarkable organization, and you know, when you take a look at their motto, Semper Fi, always faithful, I think you see that in every Marine. They are always faithful to their country. They are always faithful to their unit, and I'm a big fan of the Marine Corps.
Okay, great. Okay, Megan from Germantown, Maryland wants to know, what is one piece of advice you would give to a junior officer in the Navy today?
Well, I think it's the same advice I gave a little earlier. You know, as a junior officer, you have to spend some time with your chief petty officers or with your non-commissioned officers. You know, they really do have the experience. Ask them what they think the qualities of a good officer are. Spend time with them, learn their experience. They will tell you about both the successes and failures. They will tell you about good officers and bad officers. So spend time with your enlisted, trust them, rely on them in the tough times, and they will help you through.
Okay, next, Gregory from Baldwinsville, New York wants to know, what role did senior enlisted leaders, specifically your chiefs, play in your development, and how has that transitioned to civilian life?
Well, obviously this is a familiar theme here over the last couple of questions. And when I first came in to the SEAL teams in really 1978, I went to SEAL training in 1977, graduated in February of 1978, went off to airborne training at Fort Benning, and then came back and joined my first, what was then called an underwater demolition team, UDT-11. And the chief petty officers that were there, the goat locker as we refer to them, you know, very quickly they will take the young officer under their wing, and again, all of my chiefs at the time were Vietnam veterans. So they're going to teach you the basics of how to be a SEAL, how to shoot, move, and communicate, what the expectations of an officer are, how they expect you to lead in both combat and training. So at the end of the day, your formative years as an officer are about listening very carefully to the chief petty officers and to the senior NCOs, and then watching the good and the great officers that you serve with and seeing how they do business as well.
Okay, Michael from Lighthouse Point, Florida wants to know, how important of a role did Cairo, the Belgian Malinois, play in the capture of Osama bin Laden?
So Cairo was the dog, the Belgian Malinois, as you mentioned, that we took along on the mission. So we had, you know, a bunch of SEALs, we had a great intelligence officer from the agency, and Cairo. And of course, Cairo's role was kind of multifaceted. As it turned out, fortunately, we were able to find bin Laden pretty quickly. But Cairo provided security for the guys outside. And he was, again, a combat-trained dog, combat-trained canine. Fortunately, we didn't have to use Cairo in a kind of a combat capacity. But needless to say, when the locals came over to check what was going on, having Cairo there provided some sense of deterrence. I think if anybody decided they wanted to get a little sporty, Cairo was there to help us out. But wonderful military working dog, and of course we use military working dogs extensively within special operations. A great resource, a great asset to have.
Okay, great answer. Now, Matt from Quincy, Massachusetts wants to know, what is your greatest life lesson learned through failure?
Well, unfortunately, I've had a lot of failures, and I think anybody that spends a lifetime doing challenging things is going to fail. But here's what I would tell you about failure. At the end of the day, you've got to pick yourself up when you make a mistake, dust yourself off, learn from the mistakes, learn from the failures, and then you got to press on. And the really good leaders know that they're going to have to make the next tough decision, because the fact of the matter is, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes whether you're in a corporate world or a military environment. You're going to make mistakes. Learn from the mistakes, try to get past them, and be prepared to make the next tough decision, because the men and women that work for you as a leader, they want you to be able to make the next tough decision. They don't want you to waffle just because things didn't go well the last time.
Okay, next, John from Wappingers Falls, New York asks, as a former journalism major yourself, which news sources, television or newspaper, do you think has the most balanced coverage?
Yeah, well, what I actually do is I go from channel to channel to channel. So, I mean, I'll watch all the major channels, CNN and Fox and BBC, ABC, NBC, CBS. I mean, I really do kind of flip back and forth because I'm trying to get a balanced perspective on things. I do the same thing on my phone. So my phone has all the apps that you would expect, to include USA Today and a number of other news apps. And then I've got a single app that curates my news for me as well. You know, obviously, you know, I look at a lot of the top national security issues. I look at the domestic issues. I'm a big sports guy, so the sports pops up. But I find it's better not to have a single source for news. Nowadays, you need to make sure, if you want to have a balanced perspective, that you look at all the major news outlets and then, you know, make your own opinion from that.
Okay, and James from Louisiana wants to know, how would you compare the feelings you had as Operation Neptune Spear launches as compared to D-Day?
Well, as proud as I am of the Operation Neptune Spear, I don't think there's any comparison at all. You know, D-Day had tens of thousands of men who were putting their lives at risk in order to really kind of change the fate of the world. You know, I knew our guys were very, very capable while there was a fair amount of risk in the mission. Obviously, anytime you're going into a country, in case of Pakistan, that's prepared to shoot you down, you're coming into an unknown target. That we were in Abbottabad. You don't know whether the building is rigged with demolition. You don't know whether bin Laden has a suicide vest on. There were a lot of unknowns. But the men were very, very capable. They were incredibly experienced. And candidly, I wasn't all that nervous about the tactical piece of the mission, because we had a great ground force commander, we had a great SEAL commander, a great helicopter commander. I was worried about the guys. You're always, as the overall commander, you're always worried about the safety of the men. But candidly, there's no comparison between what an Eisenhower or one of the other generals had to go through with respect to D-Day.
Okay, great. Roger from Hurricane, Utah wants to know, after spending a life accepting the dangers that you willingly took upon yourself, how do you feel about that decision now? Yeah,
I wouldn't change a thing. You know, you go into the job being a Navy SEAL or an Army Green Beret or an Army Ranger or an Air Force Special Tactics guy or a soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine. You know what the expectations are. You know at some point in time you may have to put your life at risk to save the country or to save your fellow soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine or civilian. And so you willingly accept the risks of the job. And as I look back on it now, and as you'll read in the book, you know, I had a lot of, you know, close calls. But, you know, when I think about those close calls and had they gone the other way, you know, I don't think I would have regretted my service in the military for one day. It is an honorable, noble thing to do. And for all of you out there that are thinking about joining the military, it really is a great organization. It's not that there aren't some problems out there, and I won't tell you it's perfect, but the fact of the matter is you are doing something noble, you are doing something honorable, you are doing something for a cause that is greater than yourself, and the camaraderie of the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines that are part of the military is something I'm not sure you can experience anywhere else in life. So I would encourage you, all of you that are thinking about the service, to think very seriously about it, and if you have that opportunity, sign up.
Okay, Alexander from Great Lakes, Illinois wants to know, what advice would you give to those currently serving in the Navy?
Well, Alexander, enjoy your time in the Navy. Whether you spend 4 years or 40 years in it, you're going to look back on these as some of the best times of your life, I hope. I know I certainly have after 37 years. And it's not that they won't be challenging. They will be challenging. You'll be challenged by your shipmates. You'll be challenged by the officers you work with. You'll be challenged by the conditions under which you work. But as a result of that, I think you'll come out stronger. And of course, with the Navy, when I came in, the motto of the Navy was join the Navy and see the world. Well, I can tell you the Navy lived up to its end of the bargain. I had a chance to travel all around the world. You meet different people. You have an opportunity to engage in different cultures. You learn new ideas. And at the end of it, you come out, I think, better off as a human being. So I think you're going to enjoy your time in the Navy.
Okay, Ryder from Hawaii wants to know, any advice for someone enlisted looking to commission?
So, Ryder, I think this is always an interesting dilemma for people that are debating the merits of enlisting or going through OCS or getting a commission. They are both great paths. I was fortunate enough to go through the Reserve Officer Training Corps, the ROTC program at the University of Texas at Austin, and truly enjoyed my time as an officer. But as an enlisted sailor, soldier, airman, or Marine, you're going to find an opportunity to lead. And what you really want to do in the service is have that opportunity to lead, to learn about leadership. Nothing is more fungible transferable in terms of skill set than leadership. I've found it since I got out of the service that the one thing corporations are looking for, that higher education is looking for, that healthcare is looking for, is good leaders. And so you will learn that in the military, whether you become an officer or whether you go the enlisted route. And we always need great sailors and we always need great officers. So whichever path you choose, I think will be a good one.
Okay, Mike from Pennsylvania wants to know, what is the bravest thing you have ever done?
Yeah. Mike, my bravery, frankly, kind of pales in comparison to what I saw the young troops do every day in Iraq and Afghanistan and Africa and Asia and a lot of other places. When you see the heroic acts that never unfortunately make books like Sea Story, and I've been quick to tell folks, these are some remarkable missions I had an opportunity to be part of. But the real story is about the young men and women that served with me in these operations. But what's not in here are the thousands of other operations that took place that'll never make the history books, but that every night were just as heroic, just as courageous, that the men and women sacrificed just as much. So when you think about bravery, the people that serve, they find ways to be brave every single day.
Okay, Thomas from Vero Beach, Florida wants to know, was Geronimo the most satisfying word you've ever heard?
It wasn't. The most satisfying word I ever heard was, you have a new baby. And I heard that 3 times, and nothing was more satisfying than getting that word.
Okay. Courtney from Arlington, Virginia said, as a young JO, would you change or do anything differently? Or do you believe that without the experiences you have had, you could not be the leader you are today? Yeah,
I think you nailed it. The fact of the matter is, the experiences that you have as a young junior officer or a young enlisted, they're what make you who you are. And as I mentioned earlier in the segment, I had things that didn't go well, and people that I worked with that challenged me kind of constantly. You look back and you say, man, I wish I hadn't gone through that. But the fact of the matter is, that is what makes you who you are today. You have to have those experiences. You have to overcome those obstacles. You have to deal with those challenges. And as I look back now, I really wouldn't change any of them. I wish some of them would have gone a little easier, but they are who make you. They are what make you who you are.
Okay, David from Coconut Grove, Florida wants to know, what is the most impressive technological achievement regarding nautical tactical maneuvering?
Yeah, I think the answer today really is global positioning system. When you think back on thousands of years of naval history, where sailors, quartermasters were able to take a sextant and shoot a star, and they were able to get a fix and navigate, across the globe. I mean, it's just remarkable when you think about how sailors use the stars to navigate. But today, we are able to do kind of command and control of large bodies of, large squadrons of ships, big and small, because now everybody has GPS, and GPS works in the open ocean. And so while the skill set of a great quartermaster is still very, very important, they do remarkable work, and they still have this incredible ability to shoot stars and to take fixes and to navigate. I would say the global positioning system has fundamentally changed everything about naval warfare, not only how ships go from point A to point B, but obviously GPS is on all of our missile systems, guidance systems, etc. So I would have to say GPS.
Okay, and Eric from New Hampshire wants to know, what was the most personally challenging situation after BUD/S that you ever found yourself in that you can talk about?
Well, that's a tough one. The most personally challenging situation, I think when I was a young officer, I had a challenging tour at one of the SEAL teams, and it didn't go well. And I had to reflect at that point in time whether it was worth staying in the Navy, whether I wanted to kind of continue on because things hadn't gone well, or whether it was time to kind of go do something in the civilian world. And that was challenging, because you wonder whether or not you were good enough to be a good officer. But my wife at that point in time, when I thought about cashing it in, she said, "Look, you've never quit at anything in your life, and now is not the time to start." And I tell young men and women, I said, "Look, you're going to have those moments in life where the easy thing to do is quit." We have a saying in the SEAL teams about ringing the bell. You never want to ring the bell. If you ring the bell in SEAL training, that means you're quitting. You're going to go through life, all of you, and you're going to have some rough times. Work hard to overcome those rough times, and just don't ring the bell. Just don't quit. I've had a number of those occasions in my career, and you need somebody that can tell you everything's going to be okay. Just keep pushing on and don't ring the bell.
Okay, and Jack from Southgate, California wants to know, what was your toughest combat mission, and what did you learn most about that?
Yeah, there's my toughest combat mission. After 9/11, I was the guy who was kind of commanding and controlling. So I wasn't in firefights every night. I would go out on the missions with guys probably once every couple of weeks. I'd go out on missions in Iraq or missions in Afghanistan, and again we got shot at periodically, and things happen. But it was hard to say that at my advanced age as a 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, and 4-star, that I was in the kind of combat that you see the young soldiers in every day. Having said that, there were a lot of challenging missions from the standpoint of making sure we're doing the right thing, making sure that the guys put themselves in a position to be successful, make sure we're not injuring civilians, make sure we're getting the right guy, bad guy every time. And that was a daily occurrence. We were running about 25 missions a night in Iraq at the height of our operations in Iraq, and probably 10 to 12 missions a night in Afghanistan, kind of at the height of our kind of special operations in Afghanistan. Every one of those missions was challenging, and unfortunately we didn't always get through it unscathed. So we lost a number of guys since 9/11. So that they're all challenging. At the end of the day, you hope and pray that the young leaders on the ground do the right thing, and I will tell you, almost every time they did.
Okay, great. James from Honolulu wants to know, what advice would you give a lieutenant headed to a department head tour?
Yeah, department head tour, of course, first, congratulations. If you're heading to a department head tour, you're doing something right. Not everybody makes it to department head tour. So this really is an opportunity for you to learn, the business of being a department head. You've probably already learned a lot about leadership. If you're a surface warfare officer, a submarine officer, or an aviator, you have had to learn about leadership. Now go to department head school, learn how to be a department head, take that kind of technical information that you learn from there, and pair that with the leadership information that you've already learned. And then when you come back to your ship or squadron, be prepared to lead. At the end of the day, what we need department heads to do is to lead. Use the skills you've developed up to that point in time, partner that with the great leadership skills, and come back and lead. Okay.
Now Brandon from Salem, Arkansas wants to know, What do you miss the most from your time in the Navy?
Yeah, that's easy. It's being around the sailors. And again, my time in special operations, we were a joint organization. So when I talk about the sailors, I spent time around soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, great civilians. And a lot of times we forget about the remarkable civilians that were part of the intelligence community and the law enforcement community. There is nothing quite like being around the troops to inspire you as an officer. And frankly, my time at the University of Texas system, it was great spending time around the students and the faculty. They're a lot like the troops in that they are young men and women, striving to do something good and honorable, to make a better life for themselves, to make a better life for their family. This is what gets you up every single day, both in uniform and during my time as chancellor.
Okay, John from New Orleans wants to know, what has been the most significant change in the Naval Special Forces from the time you entered until you retired?
Yeah, great question. I think what you see is, the men that are within the Naval Special Warfare community that are badge-wearing SEALs, they're really the same people that I saw when I went through training. I mean, you have to have a certain DNA. You have to be somebody that comes in that is looking for, serving your country, that knows that things are going to be challenging, that is physically fit, that can be a good teammate. These are the sort of things I think that have been part of elite units from the beginning of time, the beginning of combat units. Obviously, the technology has changed a lot. Between GPS and drones and video teleconferences that we didn't have when I was growing up in the SEAL teams. That has fundamentally changed the way we do business, except at the end of the day, warfare is invariably about person against person. There is a humanity aspect, a human aspect of warfare that I don't know that will ever change. So the technology has definitely changed the way the Navy functions and all the service functions. But at the end of the day, real warfare hasn't changed a whole lot. Okay.
Ashley from Apple Valley, Minnesota wants to know if you speak any foreign languages.
Ashley, I don't. I grew up in France. And when I was a young boy, I spoke enough French to get me by the first couple of years in high school. And then I kind of lost my ear for French. Having said that, learning a foreign language is great, particularly if you want to serve in the government. Knowing a foreign language will serve you well in the State Department, in the military, in the intelligence community, in law enforcement, or just as a civilian. Anytime you can learn another language and learn about the culture of the people that speak that language, that's always helpful. I wish, frankly, I spoke more languages.
Okay, and Robert from Burlington, Iowa wants to know, what is the most relevant threat that America faces today?
Yeah, Robert, it's interesting. A lot of people ask me about what I think the number one national security threat is, and I think they always think I'm going to say Iran or North Korea. My biggest concern is K through 12 education. It is about educating the young men and women that are, coming up and kind of coming of age in America. We need to make sure that the young men and women today have the critical skills they need to think critically. They need to have the STEM skills for the new technology that's coming online. They need to understand different cultures and different people. And so how we educate the K through 12 population in the United States, I think, is the most important thing we can do for our country.
Okay, and Joseph from Santee, California wants to know, what is the biggest leadership challenge facing the Navy in the future?
Yeah, and actually a little bit about what we talked about. I think it's figuring out the balance between technology and the human interface. Our ships are becoming more and more technically capable, and technology is a huge part of it. But at the end of the day, there's always kind of a man or woman in the loop. And we need to make sure that the sailors understand that they have a responsibility, that their eyes and their ears are equally important to the welfare of that ship or that submarine as the technology out there. So I think the Navy is going to have to figure out, how do we continue to teach good order and discipline? How do we continue to empower our sailors, recognizing that they're going to have to deal with the technology? The technology is important. It is critical to the Navy. But I think what is most important is making sure that the sailor has the resources he or she needs to do the job.
Okay, and this is your last question from Jeff in Singer, Wisconsin. What was the most difficult decision you had to make in the line of duty?
Yeah, Jeff, I tell you, Jeff, that's a tough one. You make difficult decisions every day, and the difficult ones, of course, are the ones that involve the lives of your men and women. And you take those decisions very, very seriously because you realize that their lives are on the line. And I can't think of a single decision because, frankly, you are making decisions every single day. They are hard, but by the same token, you realize that you have a lot of great folks. We talked a lot about the enlisted men and women. I relied a lot on my Master Chiefs. I relied a lot on my Sergeant Majors. I relied a lot on the Goat Locker and the NCOs to help me make the best decision I could in critical times. So you don't always have to rely only on yourself when you're making these tough decisions. But the hardest ones are always the ones that involve the lives of the troops that work for you. Well, folks, thanks very much. It has been great being with you today. I hope you'll take the opportunity to buy Sea Stories and to read it. And again, recognizing that at the end of the day, this is about the remarkable men and women that serve in this nation. And I will tell you, I was honored to serve with them. Thank you so very, very much for being here today.